Naomi Clark stood alone in the marble-tiled bathroom of a luxury high-rise apartment on Central Park West, her breath caught between disbelief and dread. The stick in her hand didn't waver, even as her fingers trembled. Two pink lines stared back at her, unrelenting and life-altering. She was pregnant. Her heart pounded against her ribs as she placed a protective hand over her stomach, the skin still flat beneath her silk blouse, the fabric trembling like her breath. A baby. She whispered the word to the empty space around her, half in fear, half in wonder. Not just any child, Ethan's child. Her reflection in the oversized mirror looked nothing like the girl from Queens who had once skipped meals to afford textbooks. Her curls were pulled into a neat bun, her blouse crisp, her earrings small and tasteful, but her eyes betrayed her a swirl of panic and something more fragile, hope. She hadn't planned this. Not while still finishing her senior year in Columbia's computer science program. Not while the world demanded perfection from a girl like her. She slipped the test into the drawer beneath the sink and inhaled sharply. The smell of her grandmother's curry, her comfort food, her declaration of love still lingered in her thoughts. She was making it tonight. Ethan had once joked it was a culinary fire hazard, though he had cleaned every plate. She stepped into the kitchen, where spices sizzled and steam clouded the polished range hood. Outside, rain tapped against the glass. New York's skyline blurred with mist. Naomi added more time to the pot, stirring with purpose. The aroma reminded her of home, of cramped kitchens and laughter and ambition held together with duct tape and prayer. A buzz from her phone broke her thoughts, her grandmother asking how the day had gone. Naomi typed a quick reply, omitting the earth-shattering news. That conversation would have to be face-to-face. She wanted to see the look in her grandmother's eyes when she said, "I'm going to be a mother." The door opened. Heavy footsteps echoed through the penthouse, lacking their usual rhythm. "In the kitchen," she called, her voice more nervous than she intended. Ethan appeared, his 6'2" frame hunched slightly. His navy wool coat was soaked, hair tousled, tie askew. The Ethan she knew never looked unkempt, not even at 2 a.m. board meetings. Something was off. "Smells amazing," he said with a tired smile that didn't touch his eyes. He dropped his briefcase on the granite counter. "But I can't stay long. Emergency meeting." Naomi's stomach sank. "I made your favorite," she offered, turning off the stove. "And I have something to tell you." He poured himself a drink without meeting her gaze. "Can it wait? Wall Street is burning again. My father's already on the warpath about the Fulton deal." She stepped closer, heart pounding. "Ethan, it's important." He sighed and set his glass down. "All right. What's going on?" She reached for his hand, steadying herself. "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air, swallowed by the silence and the sound of rain striking glass. His expression didn't shift. No joy, no surprise, only a flicker of something colder. He blinked once. "Are you sure?" Naomi nodded, pulling the test from her pocket. "I took this today. I know it's sudden, but I thought we could—" "Figure it out?" he interrupted, voice sharper now. "Do you have any idea what this could do to my public image?" She recoiled, confused. "This is about your image?" "It's about everything," he snapped, pacing toward the window. "You think the Whitmore Foundation wants a scandal tied to my name? You think investors will look kindly on the son of Ethan Sr., knocking up a scholarship girl from Queens?" Naomi flinched. "Scholarship girl?" "Naomi," he said, suddenly calm and measured. "We had fun. You're bright, different. But clearly you've misunderstood the nature of us." Us? She echoed, her voice breaking. You asked me to move in. You talked about the future. I enjoyed your company, he replied, pouring another scotch. You were refreshing, but we're from different worlds. You don't belong in mine. She stepped back, as if slapped. You mean I was your charity case, an accessory to your image? Don't be dramatic, he said, already reaching for his checkbook. I'm willing to be generous. Take care of it, and we can put this mistake behind us. He scribbled a number. $20,000. Naomi stared at the check, her vision swimming. Her fingers clenched it, then tore it into strips, letting the pieces fall like ash. You never loved me, did you? You were a phase, he admitted, unbothered. A beautiful one, but temporary. Her throat closed, rage and humiliation crashing together. I was never temporary, she whispered. But you'll be irrelevant someday. I'll still be here. So will this child. Security will escort you out by morning, he said coolly. I've already called Jennifer and Mark. Pack what you need. Leave the rest. Her belongings were boxed by strangers. Naomi sat on the edge of the white leather couch as her life was dismantled. Ethan stayed in his office, the door closed. She didn't cry. Not then. Not until the elevator door shut and the doorman who used to call her Miss Clark looked away. Outside, the rain turned to sleet. The car idled quietly. Not Ethan's driver, a rideshare. Where to? The driver asked. Harlem, she said, her voice hollow. 135th and Lenox. The ride uptown passed in a blur. Wet, glass, blurred lights, a city moving on without her. At her grandmother's building, she rang the buzzer with shaking fingers. Who is it? It's me, Grandma, she choked. Can I come in? The buzzer buzzed. On the third floor, the door was already open. Her grandmother stood in a threadbare robe, eyes wide with worry. Naomi collapsed into her arms, the sobs erupting at last. In the tiny apartment that smelled of ginger and oil, Naomi curled on the couch she'd once used as a study spot, her stomach twisting. He threw me out, she whispered. He said I didn't belong, offered me money, called our baby a mistake. Her grandmother's face hardened, but her voice remained calm. Then he never deserved to know that child. But we'll make a way. We always do. That night, Naomi lay in her childhood bed, the familiar water stain above her reminding her of Africa's shape. She placed a hand on her stomach. It's just us now, little one, she whispered. But we'll be okay. I promise. She had no idea, not then, that there were 3 heartbeats inside her. 3 lives. 3 boys. Not 1. 2 weeks had passed since Naomi Clark had been cast out of the Whitmore Tower and deposited back into the noisy, narrow streets of Harlem. Gone were the glass walls and linen sheets, the hush of private elevators, and Ethan's curated world of elite illusion. In their place were chipped tiles, creaky plumbing, and the smell of mothballs clinging to old coats. But in this apartment, warmth lived in corners, and love seeped from the walls like steam from the kettle on the stove. Naomi sat in a metal chair at the unemployment office, the strap of her bag digging into her shoulder. A manila folder of credentials she no longer believed in crumpled in her lap. Her body felt foreign now, heavy with nausea and constant fatigue, the early signs of pregnancy louder each day. When her name was called, she approached the scratched plexiglass window, meeting the weary eyes of the intake officer. Reason for termination? The woman asked. Naomi hesitated. Internship ended, she said. Restructuring. It wasn't entirely a lie. Columbia's tech partner had suddenly found no room for a student entangled in the wrong kind of scandal. Her supervisor had said the words politely, but the undertone was clear. Ethan Whitmore's empire had whispered her name, and doors had slammed quietly all over the city. 3 days later, Naomi stood behind the counter at Sunrise Diner on 145th Street, wearing a borrowed apron and a plastic name tag that declared, "Naomi, here to help," in cheerful blue letters. The irony stung. Her feet ached. The smell of grease and coffee made her gag. "Table 9's toast is burned and Table 4 needs a refill," barked Manny, the floor manager. Naomi moved quickly, hiding her discomfort beneath a tight smile. The nausea came in waves. The exhaustion settled deep in her bones. Her grandmother waited near the window booth most days, crocheting baby hats and offering silent strength. "How you holding up, baby girl?" asked Gloria, the senior waitress who'd taken Naomi under her wing. "You look greener than a fresh avocado." "Fine," Naomi lied, gripping the coffee pot. "Really?" But as she turned, the room spun. Gloria caught her before the floor did. In the break room, Naomi sat with her head between her knees. "You're working 2 jobs, and you're pregnant. You're not a superhero, baby." "I need the money," Naomi said quietly. "I got a remote gig typing legal forms at night. It pays almost minimum wage. If I don't keep hustling, we won't make it." That night, Naomi sat at the kitchen table, sorting bills with her grandmother. The pile grew as fast as her belly. "I'll get another job," she said, her voice tight. "Freelance coding, maybe. Anything." Her grandmother placed a hand over hers. "That man should be paying for this child." Naomi shook her head. "He paid enough. 20,000 in shame." She clenched her jaw. "I will never let my child be a footnote in someone's apology." As the winter deepened, Naomi's belly grew. Her uniform no longer fit. The manager noticed. "How far along?" he asked, eyes shifting. 14 weeks, Naomi replied, "with triplets." The word still tasted like disbelief. The sonogram had shown 3 tiny fluttering hearts. "Triplets?" He nearly choked. "I can keep working," Naomi added, "until I can't. I can give you 2 more weeks," he said reluctantly. "After that, customers start getting uncomfortable." By her 5th month, the diner job was gone. The remote legal typing job remained. Naomi typed contracts by night and coded freelance snippets for startups by dawn. Her belly made it harder to sleep, harder to breathe. But she kept going. "You're burning both ends, child," her grandmother warned. "You need to rest." "I need to eat," Naomi replied. At the clinic, the doctor frowned. "You're anemic, overworked. You need bed rest." "I can't afford bed rest," Naomi answered, clutching her coat tighter. "I can't afford anything." One bitter March morning, Naomi collapsed on the subway. She woke to the paramedic's voice. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" She reached for her stomach. "My babies, they're okay. But you need to slow down, or you'll deliver early." That night, Naomi stared at the ceiling crack that had been above her since childhood. 3 sons, 1 future, no room for error. She whispered to her belly, "One day the world will know your names, and no one will ever call you mistakes." When the contractions came at 34 weeks, Naomi was rushed to Harlem Hospital. After 14 grueling hours, 3 tiny boys arrived. Small but strong. Marcus, Malcolm, Martin. Naomi held them close, tears streaming down her cheeks. "We will change the world," she whispered, "and we'll do it without him." The next weeks blurred into a haze of diapers, feedings, and formula donations from the church pantry. Naomi barely slept. Her grandmother rocked babies while Naomi took coding jobs from an old laptop that wheezed louder each day. "Mama," Martin gurgled one night, the first word. Naomi froze, then Malcolm echoed him. "Mama." Naomi clutched them both, overwhelmed. Their voices were hers now. Their world was hers to build. When they turned one, Naomi skipped her own graduation ceremony. She had finished her coursework, passed every exam from a hospital bed while hooked to IVs. But the degree came by mail. The celebration was small. Neighbors brought pound cake and laughter. Her grandmother sewed 3 stuffed lions by hand. Naomi watched her sons blow out one flickering candle together. She closed her eyes. "This year we survived," she thought. "Next year we begin." Later that night, Naomi checked her email. A message from Columbia caught her breath. They wanted her to present her senior project at a symposium. Her healthcare algorithm, the one she'd coded while rockin' babies, had drawn attention. The email ended with a sentence she never expected to read again. "Your innovation deserves to be seen." She pressed her hand to her chest, heartbeat wild with wonder. Marcus babbled from his crib. Malcolm giggled. Martin stared at the ceiling with curious eyes. Naomi whispered into the quiet, "This is just the beginning." The auditorium at Columbia buzzed with academic chatter, the kind Naomi once bathed in daily but now felt foreign to her ears. She stood near the back, arms folded, nervously scanning the room. The last time she had walked through these doors, she was just a student trying to prove she belonged. Now she was a mother of 3, invited as an honored presenter. Her project, an algorithm she built between feedings and diaper changes, had somehow drawn the attention of the university's medical faculty. She clutched her note cards in one hand and adjusted the blazer she'd found at a thrift store just days earlier. It fit almost perfectly, if she didn't raise her arms. In the front row, her grandmother sat between the triplets, who were dressed in their best button-up shirts and khaki pants. Marcus sat with a pen and notebook. Malcolm had a small calculator he insisted on bringing, and Martin stared straight at the screen at the front of the room with laser focus. Naomi's name was called. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. She wasn't the same girl who had once feared the judgment of professors and peers. Her words, though shaky at first, soon found their rhythm. "My algorithm began on a borrowed laptop at a kitchen table in Harlem," she said. "Its foundation is simple detecting early cardiac anomalies based on predictive pattern recognition. But its heart was born out of necessity. My grandmother has a chronic heart condition, and the lack of early detection tools in underserved communities nearly cost her life." She paused, scanning the crowd, then added, "This project wasn't born in a lab. It was born in struggle, in love, in exhaustion, between midnight feedings and hospital bills." A murmur of recognition swept through the audience. When questions followed, Naomi answered with confidence. She detailed the data models, explained how the system learned from each data set, and cited results from a local clinic where she had begun informal testing with permission. Afterward, professors approached her. One offered mentorship. Another handed her a card for a fellowship program. Then some Dr. Raymond Chen, her former professor. "Still the sharpest mind I've seen in 10 years, he said, smiling, "and now the most determined." He introduced her to a colleague from the university hospital. "We're developing a new diagnostic suite," the colleague said. "Would you consider contributing?" Naomi's heart thudded. "I'd be honored," she replied, almost not believing it. On the subway ride home, her sons sat beside her, chattering about the campus and how the red chairs were uncomfortable but the scientists were cool. When they got home, Marcus handed her a folded piece of paper. It was a drawing of her at a computer with the words "Mama's Magic Code" scribbled across the top. Naomi cried for the first time in weeks, not from exhaustion or fear, but from pride. 2 months later, Naomi found herself in a modest rented office in Brooklyn. The walls were bare, the furniture mismatched, but to her, it was sacred ground. Taylor Tech Solutions was born. She registered the company using the last of her savings. Her grandmother helped watch the boys while Naomi painted the walls herself. The triplets helped mostly by getting paint on each other and the ceiling. "This desk is crooked," Marcus noted, placing a can of beans under one leg to stabilize it. "Efficiency begins with alignment." Naomi laughed. "You'll be our operations manager." "What's that?" he asked. "The one who tells me when the desk wobbles," she said, ruffling his hair. They didn't have clients yet, just ideas. Naomi spent every free moment developing her algorithm, updating its interface, fixing bugs, and simplifying code so it could run on older hospital systems. She pitched the concept to community clinics and small urgent care centers. Most didn't respond. One did. A modest urgent care clinic in the Bronx agreed to test the algorithm on a trial basis. Naomi installed it herself, bringing the triplets with her in their matching puffer jackets and backpacks. The clinic administrator, a stern woman named Dr. Patel, looked surprised. "These are your assistants?" she asked dryly. "These are my sons," Naomi replied calmly. "They're part of the reason I built this." 2 weeks into the trial, the algorithm flagged a patient with an irregular heartbeat. Traditional tests had missed it. Further examination confirmed a developing condition. Early intervention saved the patient's life. Dr. Patel called Naomi that evening. "I'm not easily impressed," she began. "But your system, it works." Naomi nearly dropped the phone. "Would you be willing to expand the pilot?" "Yes," Naomi whispered. 1,000 times yes." Word spread slowly, then rapidly. 3 more clinics joined the trial, then 5. A professor at NYU Medical wrote a piece about it in a journal, calling the technology a democratized leap in preventative cardiology. One morning, Naomi opened her inbox to find a message with a subject line she'd never imagined. "Request for acquisition inquiry, MedCore Ventures." Her heart stopped. She opened it. The offer: $7 million for the algorithm, all associated data, and a 2-year non-compete. She read it 3 times. Then she laughed. Not a joyful laugh. A sad, familiar one. $7 million. Enough to buy a home, pay for the boys' education, live without fear. But the price wasn't just her code. It was her control. It was her story. She looked around the office where the boys' handprints still smudged the door. The space where Martin had redesigned the interface using construction paper and markers. She closed the email without replying. That night, she told the boys about the offer. "We could be rich," Malcolm said, wide-eyed. "But would we still help people?" "Not the way I want to," Naomi answered. "Then forget them," Marcus said. "Let's build our own empire." "With paper," Martin added, holding up a diagram he'd been working on. Naomi smiled. "With code," she corrected. "With heart." Months passed, then a year. Taylor Tech grew. Naomi hired 2 interns from Columbia. A legal advisor from her old neighborhood volunteered pro bono. And slowly, steadily, the algorithm began appearing in clinics, hospitals, and urgent care units. It caught what others missed. It saved lives. It changed stories. On the boy's 5th birthday, Naomi watched them blow out 5 candles shaped like little red hearts. She didn't make a wish. She didn't have to. She was living it. The invitation arrived on thick, cream-colored cardstock with gold-embossed letters that shimmered faintly in the light. Naomi nearly tossed it, assuming it was junk mail or a fundraiser from a donor list she'd unknowingly been added to. But as she opened it, her breath hitched. It was from the Whitmore Foundation, a gala. The 25th anniversary of Ethan Sr.'s philanthropic empire. And on the list of award recipients was Taylor Tech Solutions, her, a nod to innovation in community health tech. She read the letter twice, then a third time before setting it down as if it burned. Ethan Whitmore's name wasn't listed anywhere on the letter, but she knew. He would be there. The man who had called her a mistake, who tried to buy her silence, who denied their son's very existence. Her hands curled around the edge of the counter. Part of her wanted to decline, to stay far from that world of polished lies and strategic smiles. But another part, the part that had slept 3 hours a night for years, coded with a baby in each arm and said no to $7 million because her vision was worth more, wanted to stand on that stage. Not for revenge, for truth, for visibility, for her boys. The night of the gala, Naomi stood in front of the full-length mirror in the same Harlem apartment, her gown draped across her frame like moonlight. It was deep sapphire, sleeveless, simple, elegant. Her grandmother clasped a necklace around her neck, then kissed her shoulder. You walk in there like the woman you've become, not the girl they threw out. I don't even think they know I accepted the invitation, Naomi whispered. Then let them be surprised, her grandmother said. The boys waved at her from the couch, already in their pajamas, each one holding a hand-drawn Go Mama sign. Call us if anyone tries anything weird, Malcolm added. I've been reading up on legal strategy. Naomi laughed through nerves. The venue was at the Lincoln Center, transformed into a vision of luxury. Marble, chandeliers, champagne, and a symphony orchestra playing soft jazz. Cameras flashed outside. She stepped from the car into a wall of light. Paparazzi blinked at her, unsure who she was. But someone must have said her name, because flashes exploded. Naomi Clark Taylor Tech over here. She walked the red carpet without flinching. Inside, the ballroom glittered with curated opulence. Naomi spotted names she'd read in magazines, faces she hadn't seen in years. Then she saw him, Ethan, standing near the bar, flanked by sycophants. His suit was perfect. His hair still had that infuriating lock that curled over his brow when he was pretending to be effortless. He hadn't changed, but she had. Naomi didn't approach him. Not yet. She moved toward her table, marked with a discreet silver plaque. Award honorees, Clark. A few guests nodded politely. Some looked confused. One woman leaned in, whispering to her husband, "That's the one from Harlem, with the medical app or something." The lights dimmed. A voice boomed from the stage. "Tonight, we honor those changing lives not with dollars, but with vision." Videos played, a montage. Then Naomi's face appeared on the giant screen. The narrator spoke of her journey, her algorithm, her clinics, her refusal to sell out, her refusal to quit. The applause was thunderous. When she walked on stage, the spotlight found her. Her dress shimmered like armor. She spoke slowly, calmly. When I was 23, I had nothing but a broken heart, 3 unborn sons, and an idea. I lived in a walk-up apartment with peeling walls and mold in the corners. But I believed in the power of code, of data, of justice. I believed health care wasn't just for those with money, and I refused to believe my circumstances defined my future. Her eyes swept the room. This award isn't just for me. It's for every woman told she wasn't enough, every child born into silence. And for the men who tried to erase us, this is our proof that we are not invisible. There was a pause. Then the standing ovation rose like a wave. Naomi stepped down. As she moved toward her seat, she passed Ethan. He stood frozen, glass in hand, his expression unreadable. She didn't stop, but she felt his stare burn into her back. Later, as the crowd thinned and champagne flutes emptied, Naomi found herself near the terrace. The city skyline blinked in the distance. Ethan approached quietly. "You didn't tell me," he said. She turned. "Tell you what?" "That they were mine." His voice was low. "I saw their names in the article. Marcus, Malcolm, Martin. You named them after civil rights legends." "They are legends," she said softly, "and they're mine. Because when I told you, you called them a mistake." "I was scared," he admitted. "Cowardly, but not heartless." "A man who writes a check and locks a door is heartless," she replied. "A man who tells a woman she doesn't belong, then steals her future, is worse." "I made a mistake," he said, finally. "I want to know them." Naomi studied him. He looked older now, a little less certain, but her sons were not his redemption arc. "You don't get to want things," she said. "Not after 5 years of silence, not after watching from a distance and doing nothing." "I didn't know," he said. "I didn't think you'd keep them." "They're not shoes," Naomi snapped. "They're people, and they are magnificent. Without you—" He stepped back, wounded. "You're right." "I know," she replied. "Now leave me alone." As he disappeared into the ballroom shadows, Naomi breathed deep. She had imagined that moment 1,000 times, dreamed of confrontation or closure. But the truth was simpler. She had already won, not by proving anything to him, but by proving everything to herself. When she returned home, the boys were asleep in a blanket fort. Her grandmother handed her a bowl of soup and kissed her cheek. Naomi sat on the couch, slipping off her heels. The sapphire dress pulled at her ankles like victory. She looked at the ceiling and whispered, "We did it." In the bedroom, 3 tiny chests rose and fell in rhythm. 3 quiet drums of future revolutions. And Naomi Clark, once erased, once doubted, closed her eyes, knowing the best chapters were still to come. The spring sun spilled into the renovated storefront at the corner of 139th and Amsterdam Avenue, where Taylor Tech had just opened its first community-based innovation hub. The glass windows reflected more than buildings now. They reflected possibility. Inside, young developers hunched over laptops. High school students tested prototypes for affordable glucose sensors, and in the center, Naomi stood before a touchscreen whiteboard, guiding a group of teen girls through a crash course in health tech coding. "No, you don't need to be rich to launch your own app," she said, smiling. "You need a problem you care about and the courage to fail a dozen times until it works." At the back of the room, Marcus was helping a classmate debug her interface. Malcolm stacked chairs while explaining the importance of cloud storage. Martin was drawing blueprints for a device he called Heart Buddy, a pocket-sized monitor that glowed red if your pulse exceeded safe levels. Naomi watched them from a distance. They were only 6, but sometimes they felt like 30. After the gala, word had spread beyond Harlem. Naomi had been featured on panels, interviewed by morning shows, and asked to keynote conferences in Atlanta, Chicago, even Cape Town. But she kept her roots here. When major firms offered to buy her company again, this time for $15 million, she smiled politely and declined. "If I sell this," she told her grandmother, "they'll gut it, repurpose it for the elite. That's not what I built." With grants and community investment, Taylor Tech expanded. The Innovation Hub wasn't just a lab, it was a sanctuary. A free childcare corner offered single parents a break. A food pantry operated from the back room. Legal clinics for healthcare access ran twice a month. People didn't just come to code, they came to hope. Naomi's story became legend, not because of fame, but because she stayed. She taught, she listened, she uplifted. She walked into rooms and flats and jeans and left them transformed by her clarity. And every evening, she went home to the same apartment, though now repainted, replumbed, and filled with laughter that echoed off the walls like music. One Friday evening, a knock came at the door. Naomi opened it to find Ethan Whitmore standing awkwardly, holding a thin manila envelope. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes hollow. "What do you want?" she asked, tired but calm. "I'm leaving the foundation," he said, stepping back from the board. "My father passed 2 weeks ago. I'm not here to make amends. I'm here because I was cleaning out his things and I found this." He handed her the envelope. Inside were 3 letters, dated the week she was fired, addressed to her, apology letters, one from Ethan Sr., another from Columbia, and one from Ethan himself. None had been mailed. Naomi blinked, her breath catching. "He stopped them?" "He had them intercepted," Ethan said, voice low. "He wanted to preserve the family's image." Naomi looked up at him. "And you said nothing." "I was a coward," he admitted. "And I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed you to know that I tried." She nodded once. "Thank you. But I already knew. You know how?" He waited. "Because I never stopped trying. And trying is what makes us different." He looked down, then said, "They're beautiful boys." "Yes," Naomi said, "they are. But they're not your legacy. They're mine." He didn't argue. He just turned and walked down the hall. She closed the door. That night, as she tucked in Marcus, he asked, "Was that the man from the picture in your drawer?" Naomi paused. "Yes," she said. "Is he our dad?" "He's the man who helped you come into this world," she said. "But the people who stay and fight for you every day, those are the ones who earn the title." Marcus nodded. "So, you're our mom and our dad?" Naomi smiled. "Something like that." The next morning, a package arrived. No name, just a return address to a now empty Whitmore penthouse. Inside was a check not for silence but a scholarship, anonymous, for the boys, and a note in Ethan's handwriting. For whatever future they choose, no strings, just hope. Naomi didn't cash the check. She donated it to the hub, in the triplets' name, and added a plaque near the entrance that read, "Built by the ones no one expected. Sustained by love. Protected by community." Years passed. The hub expanded to Philadelphia, then Detroit. Naomi never chased headlines, but they chased her. She stayed rooted, present, When Martin published his first peer-reviewed paper at 15, she framed it beside his baby footprint. When Malcolm led a robotics team to national championship, she flew them all to D.C. in a van. When Marcus stood on the TED stage at 17 and said, "My mother taught us that dignity is louder than dollars," Naomi cried in the front row. And one day, long after the crowd stopped clapping and the panels quieted down, Naomi Clark sat on the rooftop of the Harlem building where it all began. Her hair was streaked with silver. Her fingers still danced across keyboards. She watched as the skyline lit up, not just with wealth, but with light born of purpose. Her boys were grown now, scattered across the country, building things she didn't yet fully understand. But they always came home. For Sunday dinners, for late-night code jams, for love. And as she stood under the stars, the wind soft in her ears, she whispered the same words she had spoken to 3 tiny chests years ago. "You will change the world, and the world will remember you came from love."